We're back. Did you have to throw up the set with me walking back?
No, I got a commercial. And,
okay, I just didn't know because I had to I was over. I have some Greek yogurts in the fridge, and our fridge freezes things, and I wanted to take them out so I could eat them later.
Yeah.
And it's not frozen yogurt. Like, it would be nice if it was that. It is like a solid brick of mango Greek yogurt. So
refreshing on a hot day, no doubt.
Yeah. No, honestly, I could break a window with these things. So I did that, and it. Bracket Cat on the chat. Paul really hates Jim Phillips.
No, man.
No, I can see he's playing checkers and the other three are playing chess.
It's a get with the times. Recognize it for what it is. Get with the times. You're in charge of a Power 5 conference, and if you're not on the same page as some of these other guys, I'm going to need you to get on the same page and get on the same page in a hurry. Otherwise, things are going to crumble at your feet before you even know what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tennessee has a 10% talent fee that they're adding to their season ticket packages for next year. The average seat will go up 4 to 5% across the board in Neyland Stadium. Now, Bruce Feldman had a really good column about this on The Athletic about, if there's one fan base that can maybe pull this off without, upsetting the apple cart too much and people going, hey, it's going to be Tennessee because they've been in the desert for more than a decade and they're finally good again. Mm-hmm. They've been big on Nico Amaliava, which so far, so good. He is a bad dude. And super fun to watch and all that. And so they've got this momentum building. So right now is the time to be like, hey, you like Nico? You like that? Is to do the little drug dealer thing. Oh, yeah, the first one's normal. The first one's free. But now, you gotta come back. So you like that little hit of Nico? All right, well, here, to get more Nicos, we need more money.
Right.
Now, and the way that they describe it, the revenue sharing and all this, well, you are asking the fans, and this is what professional sports does, and I get this, but you are asking the fans to keep paying more money to help out with revenue sharing for revenue that they don't get. They don't get that's entertainment dollars to them. And so if I'm paying for part of this talent, if I was paying, I know this is not the same thing, but it's still all right, you guys have these massive TV contracts. Why does it keep getting passed on to us when the bigger issue was we were always paying our share to everything when we bought tickets and we bought cable subscriptions and we bought this so that we could watch you, and we buy T-shirts and we buy hats and we buy all these things. All that money goes to you. And the issue wasn't the fans not paying the players. The issue was the university not paying the players. And the university they now have more money than they ever have. And they're like, well, we still need the fans to pay the players. And you're like, well, to me, it doesn't sit well. Mm-hmm. I know it's inevitable and you're going to have to find every which way you can to raise money. But I don't like this. And then you have Hunter Yurachek at Arkansas yesterday saying, if we can just get 10,000 Arkansas fans to give $100 a month, so $1,200 a year from 10,000 fans, which doesn't seem like that much, but it does seem on the little Sally Struthers where it's you too, you can help a child for just 5 cents a day. And the little kid, the fly lands on his eye and, all of that. That's what it sounds like from Hunter Yurachek. And be well, you guys can do that too. What? Right. Where? I think, and for public universities, this is for public consumption, but I do think there needs to be maybe a reckoning of where all this money is going to go and where it was going, and where maybe you can make cuts where you have some excessive spending to where it does not have to go back on the fans, and you have something that you don't need that you're paying for that can go on. I think one of the big things now that flies in the face of this is now they have these unlimited coaching staffs. Well, no. Limit the coaching staffs, limit the recruiting staffs, create some competitive balance on that end, and then you're not paying salaries and you can give some of that money back to the players. You don't need 50 coaches.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's funny because I kind of have two different feelings when we're talking about Tennessee versus Arkansas in this topic of conversation, because on face value, to me, I don't really have a huge problem with Tennessee upscaling their ticket prices, because to me, it's a simple supply and demand issue. You see it in pro sports all the time. You see it here in Minnesota with the Timberwolves. Well, you've been a season ticket holder since 2006, and you probably get cheap season tickets because the team has been crap for so long. But now Anthony Edwards has come to town, and the team is really good, and we're going to need to mark up our season ticket prices because they're a little bit more in demand. So, and I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. The other side of that coin, in terms of the conversation with Tennessee, it goes back to me to simple economics to me, when, for the last decade, all we keep hearing about is the raising of minimum wage, and, Starbucks employees are making $20 an hour, and they're like, isn't that great that the little guy is making $20 an hour? I was like, well, I guess it's great for them, but I'm also smart enough to know that the business owner is going to be taking it out on me, the consumer, because now my white mocha frap is going to cost $24 because he's got to pay his employee $20 an hour to keep up cost with demand, or to keep up the cost of doing business, I should say. So in terms of the cost of doing business, I'm not surprised that the ticket prices are going to be going up in a place like Tennessee. Arkansas, to me, is a little bit of a different story, because that's where I think you made the good point there, Paul, where it's just like, well, I'm not seeing any of this payback in terms of revenue. I think that's where it's really more applied, because the ticket price is like, a demand is like, well, at least I'm getting something out of it in terms of going to the game and entertaining myself. I know maybe you could say you're also getting something out of it if you're donating money to try to help your favorite school get the best recruits they can possibly can. But $1,200 a year to the average family of four in Arkansas, I don't see how you could budget $1,200 out of the year just for that alone. That part to me seems extremely silly. Like you said, when they play in a conference where nobody's crying poor. And if you are crying poor, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
That's where I get confused. So, okay, you've made all these rules. Okay, now there's more scholarships for football, which I thought there was going to be a reduction in the football scholarships. They put the roster limit at 105 with 105 scholarships or whatever it is, right, for football. All these other things got raised, and that's going to be discretionary per the school. So if you want to have the 30 baseball scholarships, you can have them if you're going to fund them, right, as opposed to capping it at 11.3. So roster limits went up for pretty much everybody in every sport. Okay, great. So that means more of that money is going to go back into taking care of these students, and especially the ones in the non-revenue sports who've been having to pay their own way for quite some time. For the most part, like most students that are athletes are on the same amount of financial aid as the rest of us would be, because they're at a school that is only paying for, like, especially at a private school, they're at a school that's, okay, we're going to pay for essentially, one class a year for you, with this scholarship, and then the rest is on you. Yeah. Well, if you're at a place that's a $50,000 a year university, well, thanks for the, the $10,000, but I still got to have $40,000 in debt, right? Yeah. To do this is where, if you're a football player, it's, not only are we going to pay for everything that you need and ever want, you're also going to make six figures. So it's getting two checks. I think there needs to be an accounting for this, because if you're going to tell football staffs that they can have as many coaches as they want and all these different things and there's no caps, well, and then you say, well, we got to charge that, like, Tennessee is going to have all these coaches because all these SEC teams do, and we're going to charge the fans 10% more. Well, do you need 40 coaches because Georgia has 40 coaches, or do you need 20 coaches? Right. And then take those 20 salaries and put it back into the football program.
I think that's a fantastic way of going about it. Really, in terms of, again, I go back to when the cost of doing business goes up, the only people to me that really suffer is the consumer, because the business owner is going to pass the buck along to you, not to, he's not going to be like, the millionaire CEO is not going to be like, well, I'm gonna be a nice guy and I'm gonna take a little cut just to help everybody else. That's not how business works. It doesn't work that way. Like they're still going to be trying to make as much money, if not more, as possible, and skirt around ways to try to do it. So, I think if in terms of negotiating within themselves, in terms of the university, if they look inward and say, how can we sell this in good faith in terms of a ticket up charge or asking the fan base for money, you can go out and be like, here's what we're doing to cut cost for us to make it easier for you. If there's some transparency there, that's a much easier selling point to your fan base.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about like I'm not anti-coach or anything like that, but I do think that coaching staff sizes are excessive. I mean, you look at there are some basketball teams that essentially have a coach for every 1.5 players. Like if you like, well, what is his job? Oh, his job is to coach Lenny. Anything else? No, that's just Lenny's coach. Oh, okay. Well, who coaches all the other guys? Well, that's Frank's, and that's Damien's, and that's Pierre's, and that's Emery's. That's the coaching staff. I know that's not how it works, but when you have all that going on, when you have an offensive analyst and an offensive analyst and an offensive analyst and defensive analyst and a special teams analyst, like all these things you have.
Yeah.
And if you just limited that, and they tried to do that before, and then that failed, and they've done, well, now we have to have all these coaches because of NIL and all this stuff. Well, maybe repurpose and run it a little more clean. The NFL, there's a lot of coaches, right? There's a lot of coaches on an NFL staff. Every position group has a coach, and there's assistants to that. But eventually, at a point, it stops. There's we can only have this many people doing this because there's too much information.
It's like in TV and movie when they roll the credits, producer, and then you have 18,000 associate producers on top of it. Do these people all do different jobs? Like how many different associate producers do you need? No,
that is and that's the other thing. That's the ultimate thing about going back to the Hollywood thing is that all these people don't do anything. They might have invested money in it, or It's part of their contract, so that the one thing that they needed from them, they got. And now that by the way, I was a producer on Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, and you're till the credits. Do you see my name right there? That's me.
Yeah. So were 25 other people. You're not. You guys would get a group rate on Southwest, okay? There's enough of you. Let's not be silly here.
Right.
So I think that if they just kind of said, all right, well, we've got to give this money to the players. The coaches aren't going to agree to a reduction in salary, but if you said, look, you can't have 35, 40 coaches on this staff.
Yeah.
You can't have all this stuff. You have to do this with this. I think the recruiting calendar needs to be just shrunk down ridiculously.
Could not agree more.
And more or less for the coach's quality of life, because you've got a situation where high school coaches don't live like this. Pro coaches don't live like this. But college coaches have the hardest gig because it never stops.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, we're going to have a dead period here and here. No, I think the recruiting calendar, Garrett, it's essentially about 9 full months of the year with 3 months of deadness, interspersed.
In about that ballpark, yeah.
Yeah. I think it needs to be 6 and 6. I know that's drastic, but...
Paul, it's funny that you bring that up because I actually was just having this conversation with PJ Fleck the other day because he asked me about my the vacation that I took to Japan last month, and he's like, "What's it like to get a vacation?" And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? I mean, you probably have some time off." He's like, "Here and there," and he's like, "No, not really. I maybe have a week in March, and then outside of that, it's." And I was like, "Is it really?" I think I already kind of knew it was like that, but it didn't really even dawn on me that. These guys in these high-powered positions truly have zero time for themselves. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Barely a little more time for their own families. And that's true. I think there's a quality of life discussion here for some of these guys that probably need to be, discussed. I think there's some merit to this.
Yeah, I think they should go to OTA model for workouts. I think there's going to be there's a groundswell of search for that. That spring football isn't what it used to be. I like that they've taken it down to one transfer window, and I like that recruiting to me should happen. I think they need to find a way to make it not happen in the offseason so much.
Yeah,
like there needs to be free agency. Like if you're going to do this, if this is going to be a professional sports model, then adopt what the NFL does, where like each month they kind of have a thing. And kind of do that, because otherwise, and look, NFL coaches work really hard during the season, and they work really hard for the draft and all that, but they have months at a time where they're like, they don't have to do anything. Yeah. They're not like, you can't beat the Vikings on June 10th.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do that. So go. And just like, the same in college football, except for now you have to go, like, you have to have a camp and you have to have this. Like, I think they need to shrink that so far down and make it more exacting, more precise, more all of that. That way it gets cleaner and more understood, because we're talking about contracts now. People are going to be signing performance contracts, employment contracts essentially with schools, even though they're not going to call it that, but you're going to be getting NIL. That's where this needs to go. So you've got a model out there, follow it, and just add what your flavor is to it.
Yeah, and it's funny to me, like when you think about it too, when you look back in the 70s and the 80s, like NFL coaches, in terms of, they didn't have the type of technology then that we do now that make you obsess over your role and your job literally 24/7. Like these guys would take the offseason, and then magically we would still have an NFL season. Magically, we would still have a lot of really good teams. I don't understand why the application of the way things were done then can't be applied now, all because, is it just because of technology? Is it just because it's just considered we've upped the intensity in terms of an arm race every year? Maybe, but I still think a way of life then can still be applied now. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Pierre, Minnesota so far, I wanted to ask you about this, I think what they thought, but do they look different than you? Like they're trying to maybe reinvent themselves a little bit for the future of the Big Ten?
Well, it's funny. Are you talking about on the football field?
On the football field. Yeah, on the football field.
It's funny because I watched the when I wasn't at the game against Nevada, but I was watching it at home, and I nearly fainted when I saw a Wildcat formation in the opening series of the game, because I thought to myself, PJ, you dastardly devil, are you changing? Are you thinking outside the box? This is incredible to me. That part stood out to me in the opening part of the game. I don't think they look terribly different from what I'm accustomed to see, what I've grown accustomed to seeing over the last handful of years. I do think they have a very special running back in Darius Taylor, who really looks like an NFL caliber back. The more I watch him, he looks fantastic. But I still think this is a team that is very much built the same on strong run game, strong defense. I know they played Rhode Island 2 weeks ago, but Nevada is a team that's capable of putting up points. And when you have back-to-back shutouts, that gets my attention. And then, Iowa's coming to town this weekend. You're feeling pretty good coming off back-to-back shutouts. Iowa's can put up some points for the first time that I can remember in quite some time. So it's going to be an interesting matchup this weekend, but I don't feel like they look terribly different from what I'm used to seeing. The explosiveness in the offense still isn't there, but the steadiness is, and the steadiness is there on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Pierre, enjoy the weekend. Who's Minnesota play this week?
Iowa on Saturday night. That's a Saturday night game. NBC
that's the
game.
Old Oaken Bucket. Is that what this one is?
This is the Florida Rosedale.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, the bacon, the pig. Everybody's eating bacon all week long here in Minnesota.
Okay. Well, is that different than any other time?
Not really. It's just another week for me, I guess. It is the earliest that these two teams have met actually in their history, funny enough. Okay. I'm so used to this being a cold weather game, but yeah, it's going to be nice on Saturday.
Florida was I love it. We're going to eat more bacon now, huh? Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Yeah, that's exactly what we need.
We don't eat bacon the other 11 months of the year here. No,
Right.
that's saved for Floyd or Rosedale.
Right.
You know?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Okay, grade me on that accent.
Yeah, I'll give you a C plus.
C plus.
We'll work on it.
Was it too Canadian?
I think I heard a little bit of a Mountie in there.
A little too much. Like,
look,
okay,
we can. I'll soon enough. I'll get you for a game up here. We'll blend.
Okay, Gophers.
Yeah,
Gophers.
that's okay.
Gophers.
Gophs.
Hey, Wade, what you watching?
Yeah.
Gophers.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll get there.
Bag. Start the easy word to practice with
Bag.
is bag. Big. The way they say
Big.
big.
Yeah.
Big.
No, when I was there for the Super Bowl, I remember going like, is there some place I could walk and not fall on the ice? Just like, oh no.
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 A passport when you came here. It was like a foreign country when you were here for the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, there's an Outback right there, but I don't think you want to go there.
Yeah,
it's an Outback in a hotel. It's not even a real Outback.
That's the Minnesota Knights. They want you to know that it's not real, not a real Outback. Like, make sure that you know what you're getting involved in. Yeah.
Absolutely.